Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first day of this year's National Honey Show. If you remember last year, we had our centenary, and Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal, came along and enjoyed the show. She was shown around, saw an observation hive, and ended her visit with helping to plant the centenary tree, which you can see outside Sandown Park. So this year, we've got an exciting program for you. We've got plenty of things for everybody to do, beekeepers and non-beekeepers alike. Beekeeping supporters can come along, admire the incredible, splendid show of all the preparations of honey that have been seen and harvested by all our regulars, newcomers alike. And there's not only the honey, there's lots of other classes as well, for wax, artistic, beekeeping related things, and even inventions where people are still inventing new ways to do things. It's a fascinating show and really interesting to come and have a look around. We've also got the trade hall, where it's not only traders selling things, but it's also a lot of information stands. So even if you're not a beekeeper or not interested in keeping bees yourself, there's lots and lots of ways to support the beekeeping community and our insect world. So we've got exciting lectures for you this morning. And the first one starts off with our guest that we have here this morning, Professor Martin Guifa from the Sorbonne in France. So Martin, what are you going to talk to us about this morning? And I think you've got another lecture as well tomorrow.
Exactly. Well, first of all, let me tell you how happy I am because actually being here, it's a big privilege and a big pleasure to be here and to tell you about our work. So as you say, I'm a professor at Sorbonne University in France. And we have a big institute actually focusing on learning, memory, and this kind of capacities and how do actually work at the level of the brain. We have plenty of species actually and plenty of teams working on these topics, but we are the only team working on bees. So many people ask, why do you care about bees if you like to understand basic principles like learning and memory and the brain? And the reason is very simple. It's because these little creatures have fascinating, incredible and remarkable learning and memory capacities. They have not only the capacity to learn, but they have memories and memories like ours, short-term memory, long-term memory, and so on. And over these years, we have been able to discover the processes that somehow mediate these different forms of memory. And the fascinating discovery is that these are exactly the same that mediate the different forms of memory we have. So as you see, these creatures provide a fascinating model to understand these capacities. On top of that, bees are fascinating by themselves. So they have sophisticated communication, sophisticated social organization. So there's a lot to learn in these little animals. So the lecture today will focus on different kinds of learning and memory capacities that we have explored in these last years. We will speak about some unsuspected forms of learning. Until some years, people tend to believe that there are some so-called higher order forms of learning that only are available in primates, humans, and so on. And then suddenly we discovered that bees can also do it. I mean, which kind of learning are we talking about? Well, you have to come to the lecture to see that. And also, actually, the fascinating thing is that you can go into this tiny brain. Imagine that it's just 1 cubic millimeter brain, but we have the tools and the methods to go into this little brain and understand how it's working. And we will see that this little brain, like our brain, is plastic, meaning by that when these little creatures learn something, the brain is changing, connectivity is changing, and so on, which allows us to ask another question that I will try to tackle today is, what happens to these little brains when they are exposed to pesticides, for instance? People say, okay, if you use sublethal doses, insects do not die. Great, that's true. But what happened to this little brain in terms of connectivity and so on? This is one of the things I will be telling today. For tomorrow, actually, it's a topic different. It's a different topic. It's actually focusing on communication based on pheromones. You know that pheromones are chemical messengers that many species use to communicate about different situations and information. And bees are, of course, a kind of paradigmatic example of the use of pheromones because they have many sorts of pheromones to communicate about danger, about food sources, about hive, and so on, and dominance and sexual attraction, and so on. And these pheromones are well known in principle. So we will making a kind of overview and also recent discoveries about new pheromones that have been actually discovered in the last 5 or 6 years, and people are not necessarily aware of those. And also focusing about something that we didn't know before, which is that pheromones might be doing something different than just communicating information, that they might somehow tune the individuals to respond in a good way to different situations not related to the pheromonal message itself. I will be, actually, I invite you to come to the lecture to see what I'm talking about, but it's just the idea that pheromones might not just be for communicating, they might help you to actually behave better in the appropriate situations. But that's actually the overview of the things I like to tackle here.
That's fascinating. So we hope that lots of people will come along, listen to your lectures, find out lots more. And of course, if you are in another country or stuck so that you can't come to the lectures, then they will be filmed and they will be released on social media, on YouTube channel, the National Honey Show YouTube channel, throughout the coming year. So don't forget to watch out for these lectures, like them, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that's a way that you can help the National Honey Show, even if you aren't able to come along in person. So back to your lectures. What is one of the most surprising things that you have found about these neurological studies within honeybees?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, that started when I was a young postdoc in Germany, actually. And at that time, people, of course, used to study bees for learning, but these kind of studies were somehow limited to very simple forms of learning. Okay, all animals can learn, but actually they can learn simple associations like, I don't know, yellow means reward and blue means punishment. These kind of simple associations. I mean, even worms and all animals can do that. And at that time, actually, it was somehow difficult to believe that they would do more than that. Learning was there, but probably limited to that kind of level. And the very first experiment I did somehow was totally surprising to me because I wanted to go beyond this limit. And I wanted to know if they might build categories. We create categories in our world, which is very practical to limit the amount of information required to solve problems. We have the category dog. So the first time we see a Chihuahua or something like that, we know it's a dog, even if it's the first time we see it. Or if we see a bird, we know, I mean, we might see bird for the first time, species, we don't know, but we know it's bird. So we create categories of the world. So there might be also abstract categories or artificial categories like tools. We know what is a tool and things like that. So I wanted to know at that time if bees are able to create categories. So if then can categorize different kind of images as being bilaterally symmetric or asymmetric, changing images all the time. They are all totally different. But might they learn actually that the concept leading to the solution of the problem is, okay, this is symmetric and this is asymmetric, which supposes that they would be able to abstract themselves to the details of the image to extract just information creating the category. That worked. And they were able to do that. And that was the first boom. I say, okay, this is more complex than just simple forms of learning. And that opened a whole line of research, which guided me through these years to actually try to understand what are the limits. And the more we explore actually these capacities, the more we realize that many things we consider to be unique to humans are also there. So you say, okay, this is the first thing that somehow produce a boom. But to be honest, every time we discover something, it's the same kind of wow feeling. So it's a non-ending feeling, actually.
That is fascinating, and presumably what drives you to continue with research.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And the more we explore the brain, because as I said, now we have tools in the same way that we can do imaging of the human brain and see the activation in online, let's say in that way, of the brain, we can do the same in bees. And the more we try to understand the principles of this brain, we realize, of course, that there are huge differences, of course, between the human brain and the bee brain, not only in size, also in the amount of neurons and so on. But there are some common architectures there. And it's interesting because it means that evolution somehow took similar pathways to solve problems in these little brains. So then we learn a lot also by looking at that.
Well, that's great. So we'll really look forward to your lectures.
Thank you very much.
So also going on today, there's a series of workshops, and everybody is meeting up with people that they may not have seen since the last National Honey Show. So there's lots and lots of catching up going on, particularly in our canteen areas. So the other thing that we have for you each day is going to be a little competition. And the winner of the competition, drawn from a hat, you'll need to message us with the answer, is going to be one of these National Honey Show centenary pens that we produced. And they are really quite useful because they've got the touch point so that when you're in your apiary, you can make your notes on your tablet or your phone without getting stickied up with having to write with sticky fingers. So today's question is, when you see a swarm in your garden, if there are 100 bees, if there are, you think, 1,000 bees, or if you think there are hundreds of thousands of bees, which one is likely to be honeybees? So if you message your answers in, within the UK only, I'm afraid, we are going to post you a complimentary National Honey Show pen. So we'll look forward to hearing from you. And we hope to see you here at the show in person during the day today, tomorrow, and Saturday.